welcome back to B.HookedCrochet.com. I'm your host Brittany, and in this demonstration I'm going to discuss how to crochet the circle and a square motif. This is a free pattern that's available at B.HookedCrochet.com. You can find the link to that pattern in the description below. For this tutorial you're going to need 5 different colors of worsted weight yarn. I will be using I Love This Cotton. And you'll also need a 5mm crochet hook, a darning needle, and a pair of scissors. To begin our circle and a square motif, we're going to create a slip knot. And now we need to chain 3. So grab that working yarn, pull it through the loop on your hook. That's 1 chain, 2, and 3. And now we're going to join with the first chain. So we're just going to insert our hook into that first chain and we're going to slip stitch. So we'll yarn over, pull through, and then we'll pull through the loop that was on our hook. Now we need to open up this circle a little bit. So I'm just going to pull on the edges and find that center opening. Okay, and now we want to begin the first round. We're going to chain 3. So 1, 2, and 3. That's going to count as 1 double crochet. And we're going to double crochet into the center of the ring. So we'll yarn over, insert our hook into the ring, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. Now we need to chain 1, and we're going to make another group of 2 double crochets in the center of this ring. And when we've created another 2 double crochet, we're going to chain 1. Now we're going to repeat this. We'll do 2 more double crochets. And chain 1. And 2 double crochets. And chain 1. And we want to have a total of 6 of these groups. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 groups so far. So we need to do that 2 more times. And if you need to just slide your stitches over to make more room, that's fine. So chain 1 in between. I'm just going to double check that I've got 6 groups of 2. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And so the last thing we want to do for this round is chain 1 so we can maintain that pattern. And then we're going to join with a slip stitch to the 3rd chain. So this is the original chain 3 at the beginning of our round. And you can see the first chain is down here, kind of turned to the side. That's the 2nd chain, and this right here is the 3rd chain. I'm just going to insert my hook into that chain and slip stitch. Now we can go ahead and bind off. So we'll just trim ourselves a little tail and then pull through that loop on our hook. That completes round 1. For round 2, we're going to grab our 2nd color, create a slip knot. Now we want to pick up our work from round 1, and for this round we're going to be working in the chain 1 spaces in between our groups of 2 double crochet. So I'm just going to insert my hook next to that chaining of 3, so this is where we bind it off, and then I'm going to place the new color on my hook and then pull that through, and I'm going to chain 3. So that's 1, 2, and 3. This chaining of 3 again is going to count as a double crochet. And now we're going to place 1 double crochet into that same chain 1 space. Now we're going to chain 2, and we're going to double crochet 2 times into the same space. And we'll chain 2. Now at this point we're going to pick up on our repeat for this round. We're going to jump these 2 double crochets from the round below, and we're going to work in the next chain 1 gap space. We're going to double crochet 2 times, so that's 1 and 2, and then we're going to chain 2 and double crochet 2 more times, again all in the same chain 1 space. Let's go through that one more time. We're going to skip these 2 double crochets and we're going to work in the next chain 1 gap space. We want to make sure that we chain 2 first to get us across these 2 double crochets. And now we're going to double crochet 2, chain 2, and double crochet 2 more. Now at this point you can go ahead and proceed with the pattern. We'll meet back up at the end of this round. Okay, once you've made it around to the other side, we want to make sure that we finish off by chaining 2 to maintain the pattern in between these 2 groups. And now we're going to find that 3rd chain and we're going to slip stitch. So you can see the first chain is right here, 2nd and 3rd. So I'm just going to insert my hook into that 3rd chain and slip stitch. Now at this point we can go ahead and bind off this color. And we're ready to begin the next round. To begin round 3, we're going to bind on a new color by creating a slip knot. And now this time we're going to be working in the chain 2 gap spaces, so every one that you see in between the clusters. And so you're just going to pick any place to begin. So you just insert your hook underneath one of those chain 2 spaces, place the new color on your hook, and chain 3. This chaining of 3 is going to count as 1 double crochet, and we're going to place 2 more double crochet into the chain 2 gap space. Now we're going to chain 2, and we're going to jump to the next chain 2 gap space, and we're going to double crochet 3 times. Now chain 2 again. Find the next chain 2 space and double crochet 3 times. Chain 2. And that's basically our pattern repeat for this round. we're just going to make 3 double crochets into the chain 2 gap spaces, and we chain 2 in between them. So we've made our next group of double crochets, and we're going to chain 2 before moving on to the next chain 2 space. Go ahead and finish up round 3, and we'll meet back up at the end of this round. Once you've come all the way around, you're going to make sure that you finish by chaining 2, and then again we're going to slip stitch to the 3rd chain to finish off this round. So we can bind off. And now we're ready for round 4. Round 4 is the round where we're going to turn this circle that we have here into a square. So we're going to begin the round by creating a slip knot, and we're going to join our new color into a chain 2 space, and we're going to chain 3. Now we need to make 2 more double crochet into the same gap space, and we're going to jump over to this next chain 2 gap space, and in this one we're going to create our first corner. Now to do so, we're going to be using treble crochets, and to make a treble crochet you have to yarn over 2 times and then yarn over and pull through 2 and 2 and 2. So that's how you make the treble crochet, and we need to have 3 of those. So that's the first one. I'm going to make the second one, and now we're going to chain 2. That's going to create the actual corner. Now we'll slide those stitches down, and we want to treble crochet 3 more times into that same space. Okay, so if you take a look at your work at this point, now we've got our first corner, and we're going to jump over to the next chain 2 gap space, and we're going to double crochet 3 times. So now we're working on the side of the square, and in order to make the side we need to make these 3 double crochets over the next 2 chain 2 spaces. So that was the first one. Now we're going to double crochet 3 more times into that next chain 2 space, and now if you step back and take a look at your work, you can kind of see how this is taking shape here. So the next chain 2 space we're going to create another corner, and we're going to do that the same way that we created this one. We need to treble crochet 3 times, and chain 2 and treble crochet 3 more times, Okay, now we're ready to work on the next side. So we're going to double crochet 3 times into that next chain 2 space. And we'll do that one more time over the next chain 2 space, double crochet 3 times. And now we're ready to create the third corner. So treble crochet 3 times into that next gap space. Now chain 2 and treble crochet 3 more times. Okay, then moving on to the next side, we're going to double crochet 3 times into the next chain 2 space. And one more time, 3 double crochet into the next chain 2 space. And now we're ready to work the last corner. So treble crochet 3 times. Chain 2 and treble crochet 3 more times. Now at this point we have one more chain 2 that we need to work into, and that's going to complete our final side. So we need to double crochet 3 times into that space, and we're going to finish off the round by joining with a slip stitch to the 3rd chain. Now we can bind off. And now, as you can see, we have a square formed. So we have one more round to complete this motif. To begin round 5, we're going to bind on our final color. And I'm going to bind on in one of the actual stitches. Now we are going to be making a single crochet into the spaces here in between, but when we actually bind on, we're using a chain 1 to count as a stitch, and so it looks a little bit different. So I'm going to jump over to the next stitch, just insert my hook into that stitch to bind on this new color. And now, as I said, we're going to chain 1 to count as a single crochet, and we're going to single crochet into each of the stitches and in between each of the groups of 3 double crochets or the corners here. So I've got my stitch there in between, and now you want to make sure this first stitch, now in this case it's a treble crochet, but it also remains true for these double crochet clusters. It's a little bit difficult to find that stitch. Now you're probably going to be inclined to work into the next stitch here, but that will actually only be 2, and so we need to make sure that we have 3 single crochets over each of these groups. So you'll jump back 1 and you can kind of scoot that stitch over to open it up, but you'll place your hook into that stitch that's right next to the one that we just created. And so now we'll single crochet into the next 2, and when you reach a corner, we're going to single crochet 2 times into the chain 2 gap space. So that's 1 and 2, and we're going to chain 2 to maintain our point, and we'll just rotate our work, and we're going to single crochet 2 more times. And again, we've come up to this grouping of 3, so we want to make sure we don't leave this stitch out. So we want to slide those stitches over if you need to find that stitch, and work your single crochet. We're going to do so into every stitch. Now we've come to this space in between. We're going to just insert our hook directly underneath that little gap space and make a single crochet and continue crocheting to the other corner. And once you've reached the other corner, we'll just single crochet 2, just like we did before, and chain 2, and single crochet 2 more times. So that's our repeat for this round. Go ahead and complete round 5, and we'll meet back up to bind off and finish up our motif. When you've come all the way back around, you want to make sure you single crochet into that last space. And now if you look here, I've made 2 single crochets, and so I need to put another single crochet into where this chain 3 space is, because that does count as a stitch as well. So I'm just going to insert my hook just directly into that 3rd chain and make my single crochet, and now I'm ready to bind off by joining with a slip stitch to our chain 1, and now we're ready to bind off. Now that we're finished crocheting our squares, I'm going to briefly demonstrate how we weave in all of these ends. So I'm just going to start at the center, and what I like to do is just work the tail underneath just a whole bunch of stitches here. So I'm just going to pull that pretty tight and just work this under a few. At least try to make it 1 full revolution around here in the center, and then you can just trim off that end piece. And now I'm going to pick up this next silver piece here. And now what I like to do, so you can see where we've binded off, how we've got this extra little bump there. I like to try to make sure that I'm working that down. So I'm just going to find a loop to pull that down through and just kind of pull that through pretty snug. That way that little portion doesn't show through on the other side. And now I'm just going to work it under the same grouping of stitches that I worked the other tail. But now see, you don't want to pull too tight like I just did, because that's going to make your stitches go down all of the way. And you're just going to pick up the next color and just kind of do this for each of the rounds. Now this part does get a little tedious, especially if you're going to make a blanket or something large with these motifs. So there is a way that you can work around that. If you're a little bit more advanced at crocheting, or you're more familiar with working in multiple colors, you can actually work over these tails as you're crocheting, and that way you won't have to weave in all of the tails when you're finished with the project. This concludes our demonstration for today. For more information on this pattern and to find ways on how you can use this motif, visit B.HookedCrochet.com, and you can find that link in the description below. On behalf of B.HookedCrochet.com, I'm your host Brittany. Stay tuned for our next free pattern and video tutorial.